This is to say, beyond the melting pot, what we're dealing with here is the fact that if the present population and birth rate and immigration rate of African people continue in America, the United States government says that this country will become officially an African majority country in the next 30 to 50 years, so that you will officially not be considered the minority in the United States. And this has a repercussion and ramifications on some of the things that happen to us here and worldwide. This slide is to illustrate that dealing with population, that in order to have a stable population, you must have 2.1 children. In other words, a man and woman must produce 2 children to replace himself. And what this illustrates is that in every European country, anywhere where you find white people, you'll find a negative birth rate, every place. So that means that the white population in the earth is diminishing each year. So that means maybe in 500 to 1,000 years, you may not have to deal with them on this level. So when we do our long-range planning and thinking, we have to understand that in the next 500 to 1,000 years, if you're going to have problem with other people on earth, it's going to be with probably the Chinese and not the European, because they're in a negative birth rate, whereas on the average African country, it's 6. And in some of the countries, it's 8. What does it mean? It means that in America, we have a stable population, but every place where there's a white country, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, the birth rate is negative. And the birth rate for African people worldwide on an average is 3.5%. So we are putting on earth at least 50 million people on earth each year over the population, where their population is shrinking. And this is why some say the AIDS and others an attempt to reduce your population. Here is showing you some of the early fossil remains and drawings of the cave, tens of thousands of years old. Here is showing you the African physical physique, because why here? These are statues that are found in Europe, which evidence the fact that Africans were in Europe 30,000 BC, the Grimaldi. This illustrates the actual statues that are found in Europe that are now in the museum, showing the African physique, the woolly noddy here. And again, I remind you, we come all shades of color, all texture of here. But it's obviously an African woman. And again, these are short-statured Africans in the southern part of Africa. And they would have migrated into Europe 30,000 BC. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to go into Egypt and Sudan, so we can begin to see what you gave the world and how you spread it, and why we term it Pan-Africanism. Because remember, 40% of the world's population, or 2 billion people, are Africans. Where are African people located? Of the 5 billion people on earth, 2 billion are African. We are the majority, more than Chinese or any other group. The largest group of us live on the continent, which is 1.5 billion of us live approximately on the continent. There are approximately 200 to 300 Africans in India called Tamils or Dravidians. So the largest group of Africans outside of the continent is in southern India. There's 200 to 300 million of us. The second largest group of Africans outside the continent is in Brazil, approximately 125, 120, 90. The third largest group of Africans outside the continent is the United States. So there are approximately 1/2 billion or 500 million of us living outside of the continent, and 1.5 billion are living in the continent. This is God, God is best. And we're going to trace God, God is best, because God, God is best is, again, the short-statured African, the Hutu and the Twa coming out of Central Africa. And we use a sister in our trip to Egypt to illustrate the short-statured African. Remember this, your Hutu and Twa. What is God best? It's the oldest known representation of God on earth. There's no other place that you can go and find where there is a God older than God, God is best. So God, God is best is an African God, male and female principle, coming out of Zaire, Tanzania. And this would be the short-statured African and Twa who will populate the earth. This is the God that went along or goes along with that short-statured African. Showing you God Goddess Best up close, short-statured African, and what does God Goddess Best has around her neck? A shrunken head of a cheetah. You're going to find this is in Egypt, but why is this god, which comes out of Zaire and Tanzania and Uganda, doing in Egypt? And why a cheetah head? Why? Because remember, as Dr. Ben tells us and reminds us, Egypt is not the originators of the high culture. It comes from Zaire. As he says, the high priest says of Hunefa, we come from the beginning of the Nile where the God happy dwell. So it is these short-statured Africans who will begin to come up the Nile and establish civilization in Ethiopia, Sudan, and then it will come to the high point in Egypt. So here is a God Goddess Best, which originates from Central Africa with the cheetah head, telling you that they're dealing with plains animals, which is now the central god of Egypt, showing you the commonality between us and the different groups of civilization along the Nile. Here we're showing you God, one of the pharaohs. We want to show you who are these Egyptians. So when you think of Egypt, Egypt is a continuity of this high civilization, culminating in Egypt, but beginning down the Nile in Ethiopia, Uganda, and working its way up. So we can show who are the Egyptians when we're talking about Egyptians. This is showing you Egypt, the Nile River, and showing you the origin. So when we see Goddess Best, and we see this high civilization, as you know, as Egypt, is starting down in Central Africa, and will work its way up tens of thousands of years, building pyramids, temples, tombs, mathematics, law, and it will culminate in this part of Africa you call Egypt. This is showing you the 4 kings, pharaohs, which were buried in the major pyramids and the step pyramid of Saqqara. This is significant because the step pyramid of Saqqara, the first stone building, will become the architectural plan for the pyramids that you will see in Asia and in Central America. This is the Pharaoh Zusa in the step pyramid of Saqqara to illustrate who are your Egyptian pharaohs. This is the step pyramid of Saqqara. We don't have a scale here, but it will be about 40 stories high. This is the architectural plan that you will take to Central and South America, so that when you see the identical pyramids in Central and South America, you know how they got there. When you see the identical temple structure in Asia and the pagodas, you will see where it came from as you left Africa and brought this to the world. This is showing you God Khufu in the major pyramid. This is the major pyramid of Khufu. It's 48 stories high. Give you the scale. Here is a man sitting in the entrance, made of large stones, built thousands of years before the first Asian would come in. So Africans built this using mathematics, law, geometry, using all of the scale and pulley and levy. Again, 48 stories high. Here's your scale, and you see the central piece, the central foundation to keep it together. That's where Chevron gets its emblem from, to reverse it. Herein showing you the god Harmachis for the second pharaoh of the second pyramid, Khafra. Showing you an illustration that there, as Dr. Ben reminded us, there are 82 pyramids in Egypt, not 3, and they're in the Saqqara area, and there are 38 in Ethiopia, in Sudan. This is showing you one of the oldest capitals of Egypt in the city of On, to give you an illustration of the size of the statue. Here, the plateau of Giza around the major pyramid. It's a brother from Detroit, Gary Bird, Dr. Ben, and I'm shooting the photo. We are in Dendera, brother from Detroit, Dr. Clark. We have our elders here to guide us and direct us as we're supposed to have. You can't function without the wisdom of your elders. Here is showing you Dr. Ben in Egypt Museum. What is he doing? He's doing what he told us that we all must do wherever we go. Document, bring back the information, keep, upgrade, put it in the Pan-African system to serve our needs. We're going to go to Tutankhamun's family so we can get a little clue as to who he was. This is Akhenaten Amenhotep IV, who you know as the one who is given some credit for monotheism. His wife Nefertiti, the statues you normally don't see. Tutankhamun's mother-in-law, Queen Tiye, with her dreads, Tutankhamun. Now we're going to go into the Egyptian Museum to see what is it that you're doing thousands of years before there is a civilization in Europe. There is none in India yet. There's none in China yet because you're yet to bring these things. You're bringing them up. Tutankhamun, the connection to the South Pacific. In the South Pacific, you have your walking stick and your war club. His left foot is to the left, so this is a statue of Tutankhamun when he's alive. The left foot indicates. Showing you the boats that the Africans made. These come from Tutankhamun's tomb. Goddess Bess, again showing up in Tutankhamun's tomb all along the Nile. You will know because it's male, female. The tongue is sticking out and he looks a little bit like a lion. Showing you Goddess Bess on a headrest. Your forerunners of your pillow and your chair. Showing you here God Hathor, which is the golden calf, on one of the bed and burial bier of Tutankhamun. Showing you here a bed where you get your folding bed in the bed from, and here's Goddess Bess again. Showing you your umbrella. Here is your chair with all of the screws and knobs. The purpose of showing you this is to show you what you will give to the world. India, China, Europe, and you are the originators of what you are doing today. Showing you the chariot. Long before there was a Europe, you had chariots. You will see this all through Asia. Remember, Tutankhamun comes in the 18th dynasty. There are pharaohs who were using these things 2,000 years before him. Here is your dreads, your wigs, and your dreads, so we know where some of the origin comes from. Walking sticks and your cane, the symbol of the authority of your king. Here is what? Your bow and arrow, hunting and war. Your boomerang, they call it the throwing stick. You use this while you were hunting and you use it in war. You see the boomerang? You connect that with the South Pacific, so you're going to begin to see why we call it Pan-Africanism and the Africans in the South Pacific, because you're going to see when you went to populate the South Pacific, what will you be taking there? Your race, your religion, what you call culture, the way you do things in life. So your boomerang. Here is your sinet, checkers, chess, backgammon. Here we're dealing with the brotherhood. That tight system where we as African people form a collective extended family where we protected each other. And this is the Pharaoh dealing with two figures, Horus and Tahuti, as it relates to the system. Some of you are Masons and the mystery system they call it. Here's where the origin comes from, along the Nile. Pharaoh. Showing you the back here. Showing you the brotherhood. Taking the oath to each other, to their nation, and to their country. This is where all people in the world get the oath from. This is the brotherhood, which you would call your Mason, a Masonic system, to show you that there's no such thing with anybody telling you can't do anything, because you have done and originated everything. Here's the Pharaoh, Khafra. His left leg is forward, meaning this is a statue of him at life. He's the Pharaoh, the head of the brotherhood, and here's his two wives. Always in Africa, the male and female were together. There was no separation. Always gods and goddesses had children. Always the Pharaoh with his wives or wife. They all have children. So this is one of the ways you know there was no monogamy, no convents, and no homosexuality in Africa. Here this is to illustrate to you that there were a time when the short-statured Africans, or Twa, ruled as kings in Egypt. And you'll find when you study the history, you had the short-statured African, you had the brothers and sisters from Sudan running Egypt, you had the brothers and sisters from Central Africa. Again, the husband, the wife, and the children. This is to show you the king, the crown of the south and the north with the unification. The king, again, receiving certain instructions and coronations. Always you see the presence of the male and female. There is no separation. This is from one of the temples. Showing you a drawing Again, Horus and Tahuti dealing with the Pharaoh and giving him being anointed with the key of life, where you get your baptism anointment from. This is a drawing, but we will now see the originality of it. See again, also they're wearing the regalia of the brotherhood with the tail of the animal. Here is the actual picture of what you see on the temple. There's God Tahuti and God Horus giving the king the coronation, the key of life. Showing you the Pharaoh. There is no Greece now, and you will still civilize India and China, but yet you're with your chariot hunting with the cheetah. Remember, even though you're in Egypt in the northeast, you will constantly see the relationship to the central plains of Africa by the goddess best, by the plains animals. There's a cheetah, that's a plains animal. So that they traveled back and forth, and they got their origin from it. There was no separation, Egypt from Sudan and Ethiopia. There's one continual spectrum. Your Pharaoh hunting. Your Pharaoh hunting the lion. Where could this have been? He may have come down from Egypt into maybe in Kenya, Tanzania, Zaire. Here your Pharaoh hunting the bull. Also war. The pharaohs had to fight as the head of the army. We're going to show you some of what you were doing in Egypt, because everything we see here you're going to take into Asia and the South Pacific. What she's washing. Another one of your daily activities. Show you that the Egyptians lived like everyone else. They gave the world a standard. Showing you the sisters dancing, bikini. They had no problem, like all Africans, showing the body. And the sisters are doing what? In their beautiful regalia with the perfumes on their head so it'll melt down with the incense. And she's playing a double-reeded instrument and they're dancing. Okay? Showing you the sisters playing a double reed instrument, which is going to be your clarinet, your saxophone, your flute, your banjo, which is your banjo, your violin, and your harp, which will become your piano. This is a drawing, and you can see, of course, the beautiful regalia and what they wear. Here is showing you the actual picture on the wall corresponding to what you just saw. The double flute, the banjo, and this is showing you part, it's difficult to see because it's light, but you're going to see the baboon with the banjo. Showing you the actual counterpart. Again, this is God, it's difficult to see this goddess best playing the harp. This is one of the priests, musicians playing the double-reeded instrument, the flute, the clarinet. Showing you in your activities on your boat, fishing and hunting. Showing you again in some of your activities of the animal husbandry, using the dog to control the animals. Showing you again Egyptians dealing with the plains animal, your giraffe and your baboon. Again with corn, wheat, wine making. There's the wine, the squeezing, the fermentation. Showing you the wheel and the axle that you developed. Showing you medically the circumcision, your circumcising, long before there was what you call the Jews and the Christians in Jerusalem, where you get it from, the medical instruments to do such. Here is God here, sitting on the birthing chair, letting out the babies. You're not supposed to deliver your babies on your back, but on the birthing chair, and here she's nursing him. Here is Goddess Aset sitting on the birthing chair. Here is a set of medical instruments to do a cesarean section in the event that she cannot properly deliver. Here is God Imhotep. I apologize. I had a close angle lens and I only got part of him, waiting to do the cesarean section in the event she can't deliver. Here is one of the physicians with his stethoscope. Okay. Here is in Egypt, short-statured African, Hutu and Twa, doing whatever activity he's doing, meaning to let you know that he was part of the society, no separation. Here is the other brothers doing their craft. Boat making, you made boats. Look at the boat, sailboats, long before any European or anyone else are making these things. These are the things you're doing. Shipbuilding. Here is the inscription on the tombs, on the mastaba, showing you in the activity of shipbuilding, building all kinds of ships. What did you do with the ships? You fished with nets. Here is the sunboat to which the god would take to the heaven, ride across the boat on the other world. But notice the construction of the boat, the oars, the entire construction, where the world is going to get the construction of boat material from. Showing you on your large seagoing vessels with sails long before other people are doing this. Here showing you what? The first alphabet. You gave the world the alphabet, and here is the decimal system, the number system 10. There's no such thing as decimal. You were using the base 10 thousands of years before any Greeks. Here is the symbol of 1. Here is the symbol of 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, and it goes on. You had all of these symbols. So what are you looking at? You gave the world alphabet and the number system. What you're using today. This is showing you what? That there was an Egyptian language. But remember, Egypt didn't originate it. And what were you dealing with in your language? Nouns, pronouns, verbs, adverbs. You see where you get all your grammar from. Showing you symbols. Here is the short-statured African Twa, Goddess Best. The sun, Goddess Ra, where the Japanese uses the rising star. Here's your star. That's going to be used in the Muslim star and crescent. Horus on flags. Okay, this is showing you the scale. Here's your paper and your ink. You gave the world ink. Here's the sickle for harvesting, which the Russians will use. Your mirror with glass and copper, the key of life. Symbols showing you the fact that you developed this whole concept of the soul. Showing you the helmets and the crowns of the kings, the symbol of power and the chariot. Showing you what? Dancing and your music, the banjo, the tambourine, the harp, jumping rope, and hoeing. Here is showing you karate. Okay, look at all your nunchucks, your walking sticks, is your karate. Just what you will take to Japan and China. Showing you again, these are the list of animals that you dealt with in Egypt. Why did I list them? To show that you dealt in Egypt with the giraffe, the elephant, the rhinoceros, the hippopotamus, because there was no difference. You dealt all along the Nile. Showing you the two major temple complexes. The largest temple in the world is Karnak. We're 400 miles deep in Egypt. Here's Karnak, and here is the Grand Lodge of Waset. The second location of the mystery system, or what you call your lodge, it started in Egypt, all of it. So any of you are Masons, you will see where it all started from. They're connected. This temple complex runs 500 feet from north, from this direction, to 2.5 miles across. This is the Grand Lodge of Luxor, the Grand Lodge of Waset. Here is where you will establish formally for the second location the educational system which you will take to the world, mathematics, law, geometry, etc. And look at where you put your subordinate lodges. So think of City College and its different branches. This was the central lodge. Where did you put your universities to teach the world? Let's go. Palestine, what is now Israel, Assyria, Lebanon, Babylon, Medina, Saudi Arabia. This is one of the reasons why. Okay, Saudi Arabia, India, Burma, Greek, Rome. What you did was Zimbabwe, Monomatapa. The central educational system was in Egypt. And you will then put university systems from Burma to India, Syria, Iraq, Iran, what is now Israel, Jordan, Greece, Rome, West Africa, Central Africa, and Southern Africa. Then you will begin to teach mathematics, law, geometry. Now you understand how you spread it through a formal education. Now we're going to show you the actual pictures of the Grand Lodge. Anyone in the mystery system, here is where you should be dealing with. This is the second location. The first location was in Saqqara, showing you the avenue coming into it, looking away from it. Okay, what are we looking at? The Grand Lodge Awaset, where it all started. King Solomon Lodge won't be coming into existence for another 1,500 years, and King Solomon Lodge is a subordinate lodge you put there. Okay, this is the front of it. This is the first location, was the step pyramid of Saqqara. This is the Grand Lodge of Luxor, to which the origin comes from all of your mystery or lodges throughout the world, barring none. Here's the front face. We're going to move a little fast on this. Ramesses II, we're coming in. Showing you one of the halls going into the hypostyle hall. Going through where you see the honoring the past the Grand Masters. Looking back where we came from. Showing you again another structure of it. Showing you one of the outer walls. Again, another outer wall. What is it to show? To show that here's where the university system formalized itself at its highest peak. You will put the branches, it exists, it's still there. Showing you Karnak Temple, the largest temple in the world, 500 feet by 2 miles across. Showing you the ramp system you used to build it. The largest temple complex in the world. And I'm just going to let you enjoy the architectural structure as we go rapidly through these series of slides. The obelisk. They're restoring the temple complex. You're taking different shots. Let me remind you, the temple is 500 feet deep by 1.5 miles across. Again, all of the many of the temples right at the water. Showing you the temple, the interior decoration of the temples. Okay? Goddess Nut. And just to give you a flavor of how beautiful it is in there. Here is a temple, another one. You notice red, white, and blue. The royal colors of Egypt and Africa, red, white, and blue. That's where you get your flag, because George Washington and the rest of them were Masons. When they stripped what thousands of pieces outside of Egypt, took it back to England, studied it, used your foundation to formulate government and everything in America. So here's the red, white, and blue, show you the size of the temple complex. Here, showing you the man with the actual height, so that in case you were skeptical of the drawings, you see it. Now, this is only 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years. To show you the massive size of your temple. Again, showing you the architecture. Dealing, we on the ceiling or the top of the temple, your ramp, your steps, the whole support system, the interlocking areas opening for light to come in. Sundial. Showing you again temple complex, God, Goddess Best, showing up everywhere in Egypt. You're going to see God, Goddess Best in Asia. Showing you another temple complex. Showing you Ramesses II, who Dr. Ben writes about Ramesses the Great. Showing you the statues, the temple complex that he made. You see where Abraham Lincoln in this type of situation where they sit him, the Pharaoh sitting. On his left will be a temple they will have made to his favorite wife, Nefertari. So you got more than enough representation of African and his wife, always working together in their glory and splendor, and at even their low point, always together. To her left is all his temple of his most favorite right, Nefertari, seeing the size of the temple. Showing you can't see it, unfortunately, but what this illustrates is the Ankh and the key of life together, Ankh and the peace symbol together. Again, showing you man, woman, delivering sperm. There's a penis with 2 testicles and sperms in the female uterus. So you know the Africans were dealing with the reality of life. None of the Adam rib business. Sperm, vagina, testicles, uterus. Showing you the ankia life, which represents the female uterus, the male penis, the two children. This might have been copper in there or glass. Showing you Abydos, the oldest known pilgrimage site in Egypt. We're about 1,500 miles. We're about 500 miles deep into Africa now. Showing you the upper structure of Abydos. Here is on the temple, God Khnum making man on the potter's wheel, and God being nursed by the mother. The Pharaoh, the tree of life. God Hathor, female African, coming in the form of cow's ears or cow's horns. Anytime you see a female goddess with cow's horns or cow's ears, is Hathor Het Heru, Horus's nurse, wet nurse, and his wife. Here's Hathor with the cow's ears, and Hathor will take the form of the cow. This is the golden calf in your Bible or whatever religious book, and when you go to Asia, this will be the sacred cow for the Hindu. We're going to show now the foundation of government. Here's the Pharaoh and the wife. Here is the priesthood, which would now, the Pharaoh and his wife was your executive. The priests were your legislative branch. That would be your legislative and your cabinet. Here is the Holy of Holies or the inner sanctum. Only the high priest can go. Every temple, church, mosque, synagogue has it because it's a duplicate copy. We missed the slide. Go back one and see if you can get that slide. And the famous judgment scene that Dr. Ben teaches us about. This is your judicial system. Your law, your court. Here's your prosecutor and your defense. Here's your stenographer, Tahuti, etc., etc., etc. So you gave the world a foundation. So any government you want to form, you retake a country, you start a government, you can redo anything you want. That's right. Here is God Auther weighing the judgment with the 9 gods. You're at the gate, the 6th gate, trying to get in, where you get Gabriel from. Here is God Auther with his wife supporting him. Behind each man is a woman. Always a support mechanism. Great woman. Here's Auther with the resurrection in Abydos. Here's where you get your reborn resurrection from. And here's his wife Aset, as Doc has shown us, picking up the sperm. Here's goddess Aset, pregnant with Horus. And there is goddess Aset, pregnant with Horus, which is going to be the foundation for all of the central religion about this mother and God. Here is illustration showing you the Times is now admitting, as a result of Dr. Ben and others, but primarily Doc, that Egypt is the child of Nubia. Showing you some of the artifacts of Nubia which predate Egypt. Showing you Nubia. We're now in the museum, Hathor in Nubia. Nubia is what you call Sudan. Here are the Sudanese, Nubians, now and in past. We're in the Egyptian Museum, the Nubian section. Here's Nubia, predating Egypt. Everything you saw in Egypt, this is what you did along the Nile before. You have crowns, necklaces, bracelets, rings, etc. The horse, the Arabians, Arabs, or whoever you call them, bring the horse. You had it thousands of years. Here's the saddle bag, and around the neck is the cowrie shell, the same that the South Pacific people will use for money. Here is a hatchet, machete with God best. Now we're in Sudan, deep into Africa, 1,000 to 1,500 miles, predating what you saw in Egypt. Here is what were you using in Sudan. Here's your pliers, your hatchet, your chisels, your shovels, all metal, bronze, iron, etc., etc. Here is your hatchet again, your saw, your pliers. Here is your scale for the symbol of weighing and justice. Here is your gloves. Uniforms may have been used for dealing with hot heat in metal smelting. Gloves. Here's your sieve, your colander to strain your food, all your bowls and glass. 1850, a brother. Why these there? Because who populated Asia? It's only 100 years, 120 years ago, you still had a king of Thailand that looked African and is African. They're there. Here's the Buddhas of Thailand. Okay, Nadi here, etc. Buddhas of Thailand. Buddhas of Thailand. Always behind the Buddha. Behind is Ra, the sunburst. So if you're a Christian, you'll see the sunburst. Behind the saints and Mary, that's Ra, the sunburst. Behind Buddha is the sunburst. It's all a sunburst. Ra. This is Buddha now. We know the color of the people, we saw him. Now you see the religion, you see the God of Asia. Even though we come the full spectrum of sizes of facial features and stuff, it's clear. Cambodia. 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 This is Cambodia. Who are these? These are the kings and queens, the religious figures of Cambodia. See the pineal gland, the little dot that the Africans wore, that little dot on the head is the African telling you we know the pineal gland is the master gland. It's in Africa. When we came, the Indians will use it. And now you see it in Cambodia. The pineal gland, the third eye. Showing you again, Cambodia. If you go through Southeast Asia, look at the same architectural plan. There's your temple, your step pyramid formation, your obelisk, sacred lake. Showing you again, back to Egypt, obelisk, sacred lake, temple. We're going into Angkor Wat, the big architectural religious center of Cambodia. You see the line of men or warriors sitting in a line? Remind you of Egypt? Exact duplication. And you see Ramesses II here? Okay, so you see what the Cambodians did. Identical in China. Ramesses II, let's go. You see coming in again? The avenue of men or God, and you notice Buddha is up here. Same. Bring you back to Egypt. Buddha. Buddha. Vietnam, mountain yard people up in the highlands of Vietnam. African. That's Granny. Buddhists. The tribe Buddhists with the sunburst around China. Because Buddhism came out of Hindu. Hinduism is a stamp of the Asar, Aset, Horus, Isis, that whole story. It's a stamp. Here is your Buddhas again of China. Sunburst, a little closer, there's Ra again, the sunburst. Korea. See, we have to go to these places and really document. Japan. We're dropping down off into the South Pacific. Indonesia, Timor, Taiwan, Malaysia. Malaysia. This is the temple complex in Indonesia. You notice the cap on top, step pyramid form. Buddha of Indonesia. Nadi here, even though we come full pineal gland like the Indians and come from Africa, showing you Horus, showing you the third eye and the hot sunburst of Ra. Coming into the South Pacific. That's why we name it Pan-Africanism. In the South Pacific, there's no distinction. Here are the people drawn by some Europeans when they came into the South Pacific. Now you tell me which one is a Hawaiian, Papua New Guinean, Fijian. They're all the same. But what they will do is they'll take this group and say they're Melanesian. This group is Polynesian and this is Micronesian to confuse you. But this is what they saw. And notice you run the full spectrum. Thick nose, thick lips, thin nose, thin lips. Long, stringy hair, slick hair, woolly, kinky hair. You name it, it's there. No distinction. Showing you Papua New Guinea. South Pacific is probably the second richest area in the world minerally. South Pacific, African people, these are large islands, okay, army, etc. Now we're in the South Pacific formally. Here's a short-statured African, right? The Hutu or the Twa in Papua New Guinea. You'll see them also as negritos or little blacks in southern Philippines. Solomon Islands, some of the blackest of people. There's a genetic variation in us in the South Pacific of having your hair naturally blonde. Vanuatu, where we lived and worked. My wife, Mary, was here, Prime Minister. His wife, Mary, the Prime Minister, my son, Nikki, and their children. This is Jania, who's showing you the slides right now. That's her. First family of Vanuatu, Prime Minister Walter Linney, his wife, Mary, and the children. This is the first family of the people of the South Pacific. They're independents, African people. They're Christians, but they are Denmark-Visi type of Christians. See the slit drum with the hair, red, black, and green. Are we finishing that slide? You finished? Okay, we have one more to go. Okay. Showing you the children of the South Pacific in Vanuatu. There's my wife who's here, Mary. There is Jania, who's showing you the slides now. My oldest son, Nikki, is here. This is 8081. This is the people of the South Pacific, the children, natural variation blonde. The Prime Minister of Vanuatu, the South Pacific, red, black, green. You know what it's for. The Y shape is the shape of the islands, and the tusk of the pig symbolizing a number of different things. One of it is sustenance. This is New Caledonia, an island about the size of Cuba, the second largest deposit of nickel in the world, presently occupied by France, worth tens of billions of dollars. This is where the West is getting a large percentage of their nickel from. New Zealand, the Maori indigenous people. The Maori of New Zealand. Because remember what the European did, the English and Australian, English and Irish did, they came to these islands, like in Africa, killing, murdering. This is the Maori. So that in case you want to get a clear idea of who the people are of New Zealand, they say, well, the Maori people are Polynesian, they have nothing at all to do with you. Show you how he got into New Zealand. The indigenous Australian, calling themselves Karen people, their folklore says they come from Madagascar and Africa. These are the brothers and sisters who are going to show up in the folklore of one of these countries in the North Pacific. Here's indigenous people, they're still there. In order to take a land, you must kill off people. We've come down Papua New Guinea, gone into Vanuatu, we're into Australia, New Zealand, we're going to start heading east. This is Fijians, my wife, and Jania. They call these Melanesians, Fijians. So here's my wife here and here. Of course, this young lady, my wife, and the sister here, they tell you have nothing in common. Fijians, just to remind you of what your European person calling himself a human being did to you. Tongan, Rockefeller, over in Tonga, looking for what he can get, but tells you that it doesn't exist. This is one of the kings of Tonga. These islands are halfway around the world. This is Western Samoa. America still has part of it. Here is Tahiti, under the French. Here, Hawaii, the warrior king and the royal family. This is just about the time the United States would invade the island and take it over. The people who are under occupation of the United States and Hawaii, the French and New Caledonia, the Timuran under Indonesia, the English got Australia, New Zealand, they haven't given up the land. They're working on getting it back. This is the warrior king, Hawaii. Here's the royal family. We're about 1850. Hawaiian. This is who the United States was killing off. Hawaiian, the king. Remember now, this area is fabulously rich in minerals of all kinds. The richest area in fish. A lot of sea minerals. Water lanes. Here's the Queen. Showing you how they've shot their way in Hawaii. Most of the people in the South Pacific lost large percentage of their population, whether it's 10 to 90% from killing and disease and other things, the same way they did. The slavery of the South Pacific was called blackbirding. Germ warfare, yeah, just like AIDS, tuberculosis, germ warfare. You hit it on the head. Showing you Easter Island, way over near Peru. Easter Island, to show you the size of the statue. What is it? Stone statues of Africans. Okay? We way over deep in the eastern part of the Pacific near Peru. Okay? Notice, I use this illustration to tell you, like Dr. Ben said, you must go to these places and document the history, because others are. What are they showing you on these islands called Easter Islands? Notice. You notice the stone structure? The same way you built in Egypt and along the Nile, big stones fitted together. It's your proof of who are the stonemasons, your presence in the South Pacific and the Easter Islands. And notice, you see this? Wasn't this the same thing as the unfinished obelisk? Where you chiseled into the ground with metal, put the wooden pegs in, to crack it, fracture it along the line. This is your obelisk, but they made it a stone god. So we have to all get to these places and document. We're heading north into the North Pacific. This is a Micronesian. Now they changed the name on you. He's now Micronesian. These are islands like Saipan, Bataan, Guam. They switched up on you. This is a sister from Niam. We are 12,000 miles on the other side of the world. The Pacific Islands are the Caribbeans, I call them. Same people, same weather, same agriculture. Now you got it. That's the sister. Our elder, Nehru. This is showing you this country is the richest concentration of phosphates in the world. Here's the president. Here's a dentist, a sister. We come to full size. In Dr. Ben's book, they all look alike. In this slide presentation, he showed you the shortest statured one, equivalent to the Hutu and Twa. Little petite. Then he showed you the full spectrum of the other side of us, where the man runs 350, no fat, and the sister is 250. You run the full spectrum. Modern container ships, everything they have. Here we're in Japan. And the Japanese say in the original inhabitants of Japan were Africans called Ainus coming from Australia or the Karen people. And this is representative. Here's a picture. And what they're doing is they're comparing the original African to this person who would come to the island later. And the Japanese tell you, we go on to the next slide, that those people who civilized Japan originally, African, who brought to Japan civilization, mathematics, law, art, karate, etc., 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 metal, law, everything that the contemporary Japanese would need to wage World War II, you brought there. And here is the original people greeting those other people you might call Asian. You're holding the northern island. They drove you out of most of Japan, and you're now in the northern island of Japan, called Hokkaido, and they're coming to visit you and trade with you. They drove you north, and here they tell you the Kyoto and Nara, which we have to go, are the centers in southern Japan, where all of the archaeological treasures and the treasures of Japan are located, to show you the people who civilized Japan are the ones who brought Buddha. They gave us mathematics, law, geometry, metallurgy. Showing you the Ainu. And this is showing you Buddha, the one who civilized Japan. Buddha. Now you got it. Okay, let's go back for a quick second as we move on and finalize the slides. This is Buddha, the sunburst, knotty hair, pineal gland. What it means is that if some of us go to Japan and go to Hokkaido, we should go there and document our people there. Then we have to go to southern Japan, like we need India and the rest of them, and show and get into these buildings to photograph the Buddhas and see all of what you did to civilize Japan so that you can then spread the knowledge in the Pan-African system. So that's why Dr. Ben, you see him with his camera bringing you information, but we have an obligation, those of us who can do it, to do it. Dr. Ben in Papua New Guinea, we're going to give you some more quick slides to give you a little more in depth of Papua New Guinea and Vanuatu as we move quickly to conclude the slides. Dr. Ben in Papua New Guinea. Art in Papua New Guinea. Here is the mystery system. You call it the Grand Lodge, the Brotherhood, the Masons. Here is a Grand Master. Here is his regalia. And who's this? Horus. Horus is always the hawk or eagle that all of the world uses. Here is your quote, you quote, the Masonic system or the Brotherhood in the South Pacific. The university, mother nursing, the Majana and Charles, same. Horus and his mother, Yashoda and Krishna, same over and over and over. Well, I don't know. They nurse up, Dr. Ben said in Papua New Guinea, they nurse up to 5. Okay. What can I tell you? He's just good. Turn back for a second, Judea. Well, he looks happy. I mean, what can you say? Okay, let's go. Show you fishing. He's getting someone to see the people of Papua New Guinea. Fishing. Brothers here, these set of slides I'm showing you from Dr. Ben's collection that he gave me on loan because he was in Papua New Guinea. Continue. Papua New Guinea. These are taken about 6, 7, 8 years. Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea. Now we're in Vanuatu. Fiji, the indigenous brother, my wife, Nikki Jania, and this is the East Indian from India that the English brought there. Population is about 50-50 in Fiji. Coming into Vanuatu, tropical country. We're going to move a little faster on these, Jania. There are many countries that visit each other. Air Pacific. Their own airline, Air Melanesia. Get back to that for a second. Illustrates that Vanuatu, like the South Pacific country, their god is an African with a bush, woolly hair, beard, and his stick of authority. Their god, they're Christian, their god is African. Downtown, the hospital. Ministry of Health. The University of South Pacific English, because the English colonized them. University of South Pacific, the French colonized them, in the national language of Bishlama. Down University of South Pacific, the African slit drum. There's a slit drum, the woolly nadi here, etc. Again, as I keep remembering, you show the full spectrum of Africans in the South Pacific. They run the full short statured to the big and all colors. A boxing match. Again, to illustrate they do what you do. Here's my son, Nicky. Of course, you can pick Nicky out of all the other ones because Nicky is a Negro and they are Melanesian, to illustrate that there is no difference. Here is a sister cooking lap. They cook in earth ovens, they cook on stove, and they barbecue just like you do. They have nice modern cars. Here's a little brother, Sahadia, with coconut crab that runs as high as 15 pounds. The Independence, they basically know how to hold it, capture it. Yeah. Independence, red, black, and green. Yeah. Brother going to school. School classmates, little children. Sisters, junior high school. Typical family. My son, Prime Minister's children. Nicky, my son. Okay. This is the Prime Minister's sister, who's now the Minister of Health of Vanuatu and relatives. Prime Minister's sister, pharmacist, and one of her husbands, a lawyer, related to the government as, I believe, the Attorney General. Typical family of Vanuatu that we stay with. There's my son, Nicky. Go back for a second. Okay. Okay, well basically what I wanted to show you, go back quickly 1 second. People in Vanuatu, to keep the hair natural, sister with an afro pick. She is the sister African pick who was in the beginning slide. Grace Melissa, Foreign Minister. Foreign Minister, his children Mary and Janelle, 1980-81. At a party, 1987. Typical family, we saw this before. Saw this. Prime Minister's home. His guard. They don't really have to worry about security. Prime Minister, his wife and their children, 10 years later than the first one. We give the banquet, we hook up with Vanuatu to have a working relations. The only mission in the United Nations that have a mission in Harlem, or black community. Right, 1-2 blocks from the first world, second banquet. We show you the link up with the Prime Minister. We hook up. This is Dr. Ben, obviously, my wife Mary, Ambassador Robert Van Leeuwen, Chewbacca, and an indigenous man. We're waiting for the Prime Minister in one of the banquets and functionaries. Dr. Ben is beaming as usual. Robert Van Leeuwen, he's an African American. He's one of only 2 ambassadors of the UN that represent a country that he's not indigenous. He's not an indigenous person. He lives in Harlem. He's an African American. Here's the Prime Minister. Prime Minister coming in with some of the Secret Service from the United States, but we have our Secret Service. Now you got it. Here is the Prime Minister, Robert Van Leeuwen, his ambassador, Prime Minister's wife. Get back quickly for a second. Ambassador Vanuatu, Van Leeuwen, Prime Minister's wife, Ambassador's wife, my wife Mary Chewbacca. Banquet, people of Harlem are welcoming him and their group. This is in Harlem. Same, Jania here again. Brother from Detroit, 3 brothers from Detroit. You might know Munderson. He's one of our Africans here. One of the musicians that played for the Prime Minister is Orby Welch, a friend, good friend of Dr. Ben's, and their jazz band. That's why we play African music. Nice, another jazz band, excellent. This is myself, my wife, and Chewbacca. We're making some awards. Ambassador getting his award. To show you there's a continuing link of Sister Sybil giving Dr. Clark his award, who could not attend. Chewbacca giving the award to the people of Vanuatu. Brother from Detroit giving the educational exchange of educational material. The educational material we transferred. There's an ongoing relationship to Pan-Africanism we talk about. Dr. Ben has started us in the link to the South Pacific with his trip to Papua New Guinea. Here's Dr. Ben lecturing. Dr. Ben getting his award. Prime Minister speaking. Showing you, just to remind you, the same way you civilized the Japanese, you gave Europe what you call civilization. So you civilized the European Japanese, showing you that the European went into the South Pacific. Map it. The Japanese also went in to take your lands from you during World War II. The Japanese went in, attempt to take your lands from you. Showing you the South Pacific as it relates. This is the law of the sea that relates to what section of the ocean belongs to you for fish and minerals. This is the South Pacific. The yellow shows the trade routes that are used to bring trade through this part of Americas and here. And this shows the fiber optic system that brothers and sisters in Bell Lab developed. The United States hooks the fiber optic system to Hawaii, to Guam, to establish its network to function for itself. And these show that here the attempt was made to link up the fiber optics to Japan, Korea, Taiwan, and Philippines. And they tried Palau, but now this is going to be broken. This is going to be severed in Taiwan. This is going to be broken in Korea. Japan will break it or will not allow it. They're already out of the Philippines, and they attempted to get here, so they link with the country here. These are trade routes, critically important on why the South Pacific is important during the Pan-African system. This is showing you where United States have their military forces based to protect these sea lanes. See, you have to understand the world so you can understand what you got to do all over to help yourself. You're dealing with the trade routes. This shows you the trade routes coming from Asia. And notice it come across the sea lanes that America attempts to protect. And notice this trade route here as it comes through the Panama Canal. That's why they had to bump off Noriega to control the canal. And if the United States has to leave Guantanamo Bay in order to secure this trade route here, they're going to try to get a port in the western part of Haiti. This might be reason why United States backed the coup. So you got to understand this so that you can understand some of the moves you have to make. As we begin to finalize, this shows you the vast mineral wealth of Namibia. This shows you the illustration of a plane that if you cut off the cobalt from the world, nobody would make a plane. You have power. This illustrates that the white man in South Africa tell you, I bump you off the land, and this is what I'm going to do to get you back, to keep you from getting the land. And I end with this slide. I don't think I have time to read the small thing, but what this slide illustrates is this, and I'll finish. They tell you point blank that they drove you off the land. Let's give a quick analysis of South Africa, one analysis. Let's say you have 40 million people living in South Africa. 3 million are white. They live in good. 3 million or 4 million Africans are put in the Sowetos to supply cheap labor. You know about the riches of how rich the white people live. You know about Soweto, the shanty towns. But of 40 million people, that's only 3 million whites, 3 million Africans. What happened to the other 34 million of us? The other 34 million are in this state, living in abject poverty, dying of tuberculosis. You know what the statistic says? Of the 34 million Africans, it's like I told you to go to Prospect Park and try to survive. 34 million, or about 85% of the population, are living like this. 1/2 of all of these children, or 85% of the population of South Africa, never make it past age 5. There are estimates that we lose as much as 1 million children dead a year. Now, could this be the fact that we know that when you were on the land, everything was prosperous? Might this be one of the reasons behind the split between Winnie Mandela and Nelson, who wants to fit in on the integration, and Mandela, when he said, no, we're going to get the land back. Okay, so you must understand that, remember, what is the most traded in the world? Food. If Africa changes its agricultural policy in the world, Europe starves. Okay, so just understand you got power, and we have to get these 85% of the people from dying back. So you must, the goal is to bring South Africa back at the minimum to the state it was before the European came, which means total ownership of everything in Africa with no compromise.
Let's give Dr. Lewis another hand for that magnificent presentation.